Hi there. As a therapist and a mum of three, I'm often asked by parents of the best ways to help their children deal with worries and anxieties. So I thought I'd put together a few tips in this podcast, and down below in the links I have put a link to a collection of podcasts that I've created with young children in mind up to the age of 11 or so. These podcasts are mainly just spoken word. There is one track that has got background music, but generally speaking, children don't actually like what we as adults believe is relaxation music as background. They find it a bit spooky, a bit eerie, so I've kept most of the tracks to purely spoken word. So, my first tip is to share with children the fact that anxieties and worries are actually okay to have. They serve a purpose, so we do need to have some anxieties and some worries. What we don't want is for those worries to take over our life and to dominate the activities that we want to do. But feeling worried and feeling anxious is just our brain's way of checking that we have thought things through, that we are going to keep ourselves safe. So, for example, if we didn't have worries and anxiety, we would just walk straight off into the road, not caring whether there was any traffic, and obviously that's not a good thing to do. So having a worry part in our brain keeps us safe. It makes sure that we stop, look and listen before we cross the road. So that is an important point to reassure the child that it's okay to worry, but we're just going to look at other ways that we can contain those worries that might be starting to get a little bit too much. So the next tip is something I have mentioned in another podcast, but is a really, really useful tool, and that is to set aside a worry time to go through worries with your child. Make sure that this time is not too late in the day, late afternoons or after school, for example, on a school day works quite well. And make sure that that worry time is limited. Set your timer for 10 or 15 minutes. Make sure that you turn your mobile phones off, that there's no television on in the background, and there's just you listening to your child. Let them express any worries that they have. There are many things that you will be able to reassure them about straight away. Other things you might write down and say, well, we've run out of time today, but we're going to look at that tomorrow. And you can encourage your child to either ask you as the day goes on to make a note of other questions that they have. If they're old enough to write themselves, they could make a note of any questions that occur to them. Pop them in a worry box or in an envelope, a place where they can easily find that list, and then the next day go through those worries and those questions. That way you are containing their anxieties, you're acknowledging them, you're not being dismissive and telling them not to think about things, that's silly and doesn't need to be talked about, and they can trust that each day for a short time they will have the opportunity to express their worries, and they will be dealt with. If there are questions that come up that you don't know the answer to, again, keep a note of them and go and find out, so the next day you can actually give them an answer that is satisfactory to them. So the third tip is to deal with what if questions. An anxious child has lots of what if questions for you. What if there are too many people? What if there isn't any space for us when we get there? What if we miss the bus? What if we're late? What if? So what we want to teach our children is that ultimately these questions do pop into our mind. Again, it's the way of our brain to just check that we have all bases covered. So it's okay to have what if questions, but the ultimate answer is to be able to know and be reassured that we'll deal with it. We'll deal with whatever emerges. We have those tools, and this means that we are enabling our children to become resilient, which is a really important life lesson for them to know that they have the tools they need to deal with whatever life throws at them. So going through those what if questions, what if the place is too crowded and there's not enough space when we arrive? What if we can't find a seat in the restaurant? Well, we'll go somewhere else, or we'll go for a walk and come back when it's a quieter time. Find simple, short ways of addressing those what if questions, again trying to contain them and trying to lead as quickly as you can to that message. Well, look, we've seen that we will find a way of dealing with whatever happens. We don't know for sure what's going to happen when we get to a place or when we get to a certain date, but we can deal with it. The next tip is to take things step by step. If, for example, you have, let's say, a 9-year-old child who has social anxieties and gets very worried, anxious, and tries to avoid going to friends' birthday parties, you can agree with your child how you will tackle it step by step. You don't even need to go through all the steps in advance with them, but just let them know how you're going to deal with the first 1 or 2 steps. So say they are worried about going to a birthday party, you can say, okay, let's go together, and the first time you go, or for the first half of that party, I will come with you and I will come into the room, the main room where your friends are, and I will stay there. I will just sit down in the corner and let you enjoy your party, but I will be there. And you might agree to do this for half an hour and say that after that you will withdraw into another room but stay in the building, or you might agree that you will stay there for the whole of the time. Whatever you agree with the child, make sure that you stick to it so they know that they can build up trust and they know exactly where you are. And by building up that trust in small steps, you are going to make it easier for them to progress on to the next step. So that next step might be for you to be in another room or another part of the venue, but again, sitting in a space where you tell the child you will be and making sure you are there. You could then build it up so that you are outside, either waiting in your car or sitting outside somewhere. So you're just creating a little bit of distance, but you're still staying somewhere where your child can easily find you should they need to. And then you may want to build up to the possibility of you dropping the child at the party, maybe taking them to the front door, giving them a hug and a kiss, and then going back home and letting them know that you'll be back at a certain time to pick them up. And again, making sure that you're on time is going to build up that confidence and that trust that your child needs. Doing things in baby steps is important, so progressing from one step to the other. Don't be tempted to rush things. And if there is any regression, trying to only go back to the previous step and encouraging your child by showing them how far they've already come and saying it's okay to go back a step and then regroup before you move forward again, but trying not to allow them to go right back to the beginning if you can. So the next tip is encouraging your child to practice relaxation, mindful techniques. This is a really good habit to get into, and it's something that you can build into your everyday routine, something that you can do with your children. You can all lie on the bed together, you can lie on the sofas, lie on the floor, draw the curtains if that makes it feel nice and cosy, and pop on some music or some background sound There are many nature sounds that you can get on YouTube, or you can buy background tracks of different sounds of nature, something that you all enjoy and makes you feel good inside. Or there might be some music that you enjoy listening to, something that's calm, maybe something without words is best if possible. As I mentioned earlier, there are links down below to a collection of podcast tracks that I've created especially for children that are mostly spoken word, and you might want to give those a try. But it is important to build it into your daily routine, maybe something that you can all do at bedtime, for example, and just 5 minutes a day will really make a difference and will get your child's mind used to just letting go, just releasing a little bit of the tension and the tightness that comes from being on high alert and being anxious for most of the day. So if you have any experiences you'd like to share with other viewers, if you have any feedback from me or any questions, please do get in touch, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.